Namaste everyone. My name is Vaishali Shah. You're welcome on our session on Hindu Scriptures YouTube channel, hinduscriptures.com. The same is found on Facebook, hinduscriptures.com, and also on Instagram as Namaste everyone. My name is Vaishali Shah. You're welcome on our session on Hindu Scriptures YouTube channel, hinduscriptures.com. The same is found on Facebook, hinduscriptures.com, and also on Instagram as Namaste everyone. My name is Vaishali Shah. You're welcome on our session on Hindu Scriptures YouTube channel, hinduscriptures.com. Sorry. The same is found. Yes. Yeah, sorry, because I think my some other application was on the background. So today we have Abhinav Goswami ji, who is going to talk about cow-based ecosystems for sustainability in rural communities. Sorry for the mess up. Before I start the session, as our tradition, I would like to do a small prayer because this is Janmashtami today and it's a very auspicious day. So let's remember Krishna and remember that he's the ultimate ultimate God, and as well as the best guide to us. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna to everyone. So before we start, let's read his profile, how he got into this very interesting profession of running a Gaushala in the US. Abhinav Goswami is an internationally experienced data scientist with over 20 years of experience as statistical data analysis expert for various industries such as pharmaceutical, finance and investment, banking and technology. He started his career as a biostatistician at Ranbaxy Research Labs and later moved to GE Capital and Franklin Templeton in India. Over 10 years of expertise in analytics opened the doors for an international exposure to work for companies like Royal Bank of Scotland as vice president, credit risk in Stamford City, USA, and data scientist at Apple Inc. in California. After his return from USA in March 2017, he founded VedicTree Foundation, an NGO dedicated for saving cows, motivating farmers for organic farming, and set up institutes for social importance like cow breeding centers, elementary schools, and hospitals. So, Abhinav ji, namaste, namaste, बहुत बहुत स्वागत है आपका. Please unmute here.
Namaste, Vaishali ji. Thank you so much. This is really good to see you and talk about cows. I look forward, very exciting session.
So Abhinav ji, tell us something about your early life. How did you start? Because your original profession is different from the work which we are promoting today. Give us some idea about your journey.
Yeah, I was born in a village in India. I'm from Aligarh, Uttar Pradesh, which is about 100 miles south of Delhi. So that village back in, about 40 years back, there were not so much facilities or what we call development, world's luxuries, electricity, water, and all that. So I grew up in that village. We didn't have a road, we didn't have electricity. My actual light bulb was like, you put a kerosene in a glass bottle with a cotton thread in it. And that's what I was doing my high school when growing up. From there, 12th standards, I was in a village school and then moved to Aligarh Muslim University for my bachelor's in statistics. And then later to University of Delhi for master's in research in statistics. After that, did some teaching, guest lectureship, and then especially in computer science and statistics. That opened door for some corporate experience, joined Ranbaxy, then GE Capital, Franklin Templeton Investments, all in India. And then opportunity came, moved to US, working for a call center company. And then a recession came in, and that shuffled out many things, moved to bank, Royal Bank of Scotland, and finally at Apple. So if you look at this journey of last about 20 years, working at Apple is considered as one of the most desiring position. That to being data scientists in today's world is like all companies look for data scientists. And Harvard Business Review says that this is the sexiest job of 21st century. So I was like, okay, we achieved it. And I didn't know whether I planned for it, but it happened. But when that happens, a natural question is, were you chosen to be at this position, or because you did not plan, right? So someone else was actually planning it for you, and then you are enjoying it. Like we plan picnic for kids. Kids don't plan, but they enjoy it, right? So there's a bigger force behind that enjoyment, that success. And that's where this whole idea started looking back into, the story of that village boy, which didn't have any motivational figure to follow, didn't have any set guidance, didn't have anyone to, like help me understand the world as it is. So what I figured out is that whatever I am today is because of that culture, that education, that value system, which my family, village, and all the people put, especially my lifestyle in my childhood, what I was exposed to actually built up a lot of me and what I do today, what I think today. So a question was why I was forced out of that village to work for Apple. What was the reason? And then you start look at Apple. I talk to people who are 3-4 layer up and understand, hey, where do you live? And people say, I live countryside. And when you think countryside, it's more like a village, literally a village, right? And they proudly say there's no pollution, there's no noise, there's all good stuff. And then you join the point that what's wrong with my village? Why can't I live in my village and work there? So this was one pointer, I think. And then the bigger pointer was when you work for a good company, you have friend circle, people start building perceptions and building faces around it. So some of my friends, you should start eating organic and buy from expensive stores, you earn a lot of money. And then I said, me being a data scientist, let me see what is the story behind these organic stuff. And started going to the farms, understanding the basics. And what I figured that it is just it's like a branding more than the process. So you talk to the farmer, oh, I don't use anything. I just use natural way of growing the crops. There's no, right? And I knew from fact that when I was living in the village, we were not using anything. Everything in our field was from the cows. So all the cow dung which we were producing. When I was a kid, we had 20 cows in our home. So my whole life was we come from a school and we have some lunch and then take cows and graze them. So 4 hour dedicated grazing every single day. There was no Sunday, Saturday, no holiday, right? So from that background, I said we were not using anything and our food was good and everything was perfect. And I'm the one who quit that thing and came in pursuit of eating organic at Bay Area. So that's my personal thing. On a bigger scale, I think when something is given to someone, I think there's a bigger expectation out of it. And I thought, if I can make a journey from village boy to Bay Area, I think I have more responsibility to share this experience, plant the seed of success to rest of the kids in the rural communities. Like, how do I help them become successful as I have become? Can they become more successful than me? Can they become better scientists than me? So this thought forced me to rethink the whole idea. And then I went back into history of, like what India was, what India is today, and what India's potential is. So India, until 200 years back, I'm just talking even 150 years back, 1820 or that time frame, it was largest economy of the world. World's 24% world GDP was India. And if you try to understand the backbone of that economy, there were three major pillars. One was Krishi, other Krishi means agriculture, Vanij means business, and Shilp means skills. So basically, that whole society of that time was focused on their self-sustainable agriculture. Every household, every person was engaged in a business, and every person was a skilled person. So now if I put in today's perspective, I have few skills. One skill I know statistics to a little bit, not like expert in statistics. I know computer science and I know English. With these three skills, I can be qualified, and I have shown it that yes, I'm one of the significant contributor to a success story, to a company. Our sages in those time when they were educating kids, they were talking 64 skills. 64 कलाओं की बात करते हैं. So imagine if they had an ecosystem to expose these kids to 64 skills. Today, I don't get exposure to that, right? As a kid, I did not get, even my kids couldn't have that opportunity. So I think fundamentally the education system has designed just to mostly to serve the corporates and not to bring the innovation and prosperity. And that was one aspect, that having a skill helps you. Number two, the advantage. Each household had a business. India was known for many products, and that was the main reason Britishers actually went India to take all of this. And they not only took it, they destroyed it, which previous rulers didn't do. I mean, they looted the country, but did not destroy the fabric of it. So, and Krishi was self-sustainable, means they were not looking for chemical, fertilizer, seed, or tractor. Everything was there local. So how do we become more like a local-centric economy? That was the thought coming to mind. And that's where this whole idea of cow enters into the picture. I'm still working, in my job, but I used to get like 1 hour time in the morning and evening, because where I used to live in Stamford, California to office, there's about a 1.5 hour drive, and I was sitting in the bus. The company provided a bus, so we used it. And those were the thoughts I started writing, started putting some framework, started writing some poems at that time too. So eventually, this idea got stuck that we were the largest economy of the world and people were flowing into India from everywhere. Now it has reversed. People are flowing outside of India to everywhere in the world. And why is that? Because we are in pursuit of that little bit prosperity, which is relatively difficult to get in India and relatively easy to get. Other than that, I think when I talk to people who are 20, 30, 40 years older to me, even in US, other than money, I think rest of the things they miss the cultural connection, they miss the social connection, the fabric, the way, they have seen their elders live happily versus what the lonely life they live here. These things I saw happening to me as well. In fact, what I used to do in Bay Area and other, since I came to US and since childhood as well, I try to spend my time at least once a month or more possible, spend time with 1 hour with an elderly person who's 20, 30, 40, whatever year older to, even like 5 years. And that gives a lot of experience. That habit was since childhood, is still continuing. And met many people who were very successful people who came to US, who came to other countries. I met a lot of people who were in Kenya with other South African countries. Then we moved to US, and many families, fantastic, very ritual, very spiritual. So after discussion, what happens? The first 15-minute discussion becomes more like glorified discussion. So, 30 mark हम बोलते हैं, that we did this, we did that. They will tell stories like, now life is so easy that you send a message and you get the visa, or, people get your application. In our time, we would handwrite the letter, and we'll find the good handwriting person in the village or in the city and send the letter. Then we'll wait for a month or 2 months, and then the approval decline will come. So I understand technology has made life simple for us. But the struggle is increasing. My struggle is totally different than my son or daughter is going to face, because my father's struggle was totally different than what I am struggling. So but my father was, maybe intelligent enough to prepare me for this struggle. He himself was not a mathematician, statistician, computer scientist, but he kind of, paved the path to get into it. So looking into these aspects, I thought, the cow was the backbone of that economy. Our farmer was not using any fertilizer, chemical fertilizer. Everything was self-sustainable. So how do we go back to that ecosystem, which can bring us that real prosperity? Can we repeat that thing? And that's where, that's our culture. Actually, we kind of learn from history. There's so many scriptures and all that. It's all knowledge there, and we try to apply, right? Today, if we have to go to spirituality, we look for some scripture which is not written by me, my father, or my father's father. Maybe some says back in Satyuga, or, or wherever. So going back to that culture was the idea. How do I understand those components? So cow was part of the society. It is still, but it's in a different context today. But I think I have seen in my life about 40, 50 years back, cow was the important part of life. And it has been important part of my life as long as I was living in the village. So how do we convert that into a prosperity? That was the thought. And that's where I started building a ecosystem model around it. And we came up with the 8-point cow-based ecosystem, wherein we, if we look at individual life, a successful society, you need good food. Everybody needs good food. We need good milk. We need good ghee, good butter, yogurt, right? If we know this milk has poison, we will not take it. If we know this has something wrong, we will not take it, right? So we need good stuff in dairy aspects. It's especially for Indians, then we talk about energy. Energy is so important that we can't even imagine living without it. If there's a power outage for a few minutes, people get panic. So we need good energy which is renewable, energy which doesn't produce pollution and all that. And then we need a system to grow food, like fertilizers and all that. We also need good healthcare, which is, mostly, I think Indian back of their mind, they would prefer a Ayurvedic treatment if they believe in it versus allopathic, unless it's an emergency or something. So, because this is traditional knowledge coming, right? If there's a little bit cold, we would prefer to drink adrak and tulsi chai than basically getting some antibiotic. So we need that, right? And then we need a good product base if we can get some eco products. We want to have a good environment to live. So if we look at it, if as a successful person, if I'm looking myself, let's say if I'm alive at 70, 80, what I need all goodness around me. I don't want to complain about that this thing has degraded, that thing has degraded, people don't listen, kids don't listen. That's the discussion I used to have. And that's where I decided, rather than me complaining, can I fix something? Can I be part of the solution rather than just complaining and building the queue for complaints? So back in 17, decided to quit all the corporate life, and with the whole family support, we went back to India, to the same village where I grew up. We had an old house. We renovated that. Kids didn't have much experience living in the village other than like a 1 or 2 days visit they used to have. So now they were a little bit mature, understand the situation, both were in middle school. That's where I decided to move. And somehow I was thinking, I grew up and studied in same village, government school. These kids should have some experience of that too. So what we did, this whole theoretical idea of cow-based ecosystem, we started implementing. And what today we have in that village, so we are 9 cousins in our family. My father was 3 brothers. So the eldest Tauji, my father's eldest brother, had two sons. The second one has 5 sons, and my father, and so we are 2 brothers, 2 brothers, 2 sisters. So that's how, we are 9 brothers who hold all the land which my grandfather had, and some land was purchased later. So that all combined is roughly about 25-acre land in total. So I put a proposal to all of them, and if you arrange us in the order of age, I am at the bottom third. So basically rest of 5, 6 are elder to me. So, and we always respect each other, even in today's world where we live separate places, different houses, when they all come close, when they come to the village, we are a joint family still. And the whole village says this is the only family which is still holding that value system. So I put a proposal that, we all 9, one day we're going to disappear because our ancestor disappeared. We will also. Do we want to leave some legacy? Do we want to put something good use of this land? Because I'm not of the opinion that we should sell it. And we are building assets in other parts of the country, other parts of the world. But can we preserve what we already have? And the only way to preserve is if you convert that into an institution, into an organization, because individuals' mindset changes. And so the idea was put forward, and initially my 4 brothers were off totally supporting it. Rest like, oh, what if we lose our land, is that? So they had some concern, but after 1 month of back and forth discussions, we all were on same page. And then the idea was put. They all have leased this land to us, to the organization basically. And the organization is called VedicTree Foundation. It's a non-profit in India. And then we set up some for-profit companies like VedicTree Agro-Dairy Products and all that. But today's ecosystem, what we have, infrastructure for 200 cows. We have right now 80 cows are there. And then the whole cow dung urine goes to a very big biodigester where we decompose it. So when you decompose biodung in a biodigester, it produces methane. That's a natural process. We just capture it. That captured methane is then passed to a biogenerator. So it produces electricity. Today we produce 30 kilowatt 3-phase for 40 volt, which is a commercial power. Producing 30 kilowatt in a rural setup is a big deal. So we produce our own electricity. Rest of the biogas we use as a fuel. So you need you need gas to cook food and all that. We actually produce our own gas to cook food for cows, for ourselves, and heat up the milk, make ghee and all that. So all this operation is carbon neutral. We don't produce any bad stuff to earth. We rather use bad stuff to convert into good stuff. So our electricity is neat and clean and green. Fuel is good. And then what happens, this bioslurry comes out from that plant. That bioslurry goes to a very big biofertilizer unit. That biofertilizer unit, as of now, we have expanded it to a 300 ton per month capacity which means we produce or rather process 10 ton biodung every day. So of course, we don't produce 10 ton every day. So we buy, cow dung from different people, different Gaushalas in the area. And we pay them upfront, which means we are actually helping them to sustain their Gaushala because they haven't yet figured it out, a eco model. So that way, today we are buying 10,000 kg per day, but eventually we could, we are actually exploring if we can go more on it as this product becomes popular with farmers. So what we do with that cow dung and the slurry, in nature, there are two kind of degradation system. In a microbiology terms, so one is called aerobic digestion and another is called anaerobic digestion. So aerobic digestion means this decomposition happens in presence of oxygen. Suppose a leaf falls on the ground from the tree, in few days it becomes yellow and then it becomes gray and then it decomposes. So that decomposition happens in the presence of oxygen. It's called aerobic digestion. There's another digestion called anaerobic, which is happens when there is no oxygen available. So no oxygen, but it is still decomposes. And that's a biodigester concept where, even if you put that leaf covered in a box or seal it, it will still decompose, but that's anaerobic digestion. So biodigester is anaerobic. We get a lot of stuff done through that bacteria, and then we take that slurry, go to aerobic digestion. And that aerobic digestion, we have designed a commercial system, which basically pushes a lot of air through that pile. So this goes into like a batch process. Obviously, we are not taking 10,000 kg every day. We take it, we store it, but this big giant fermentation unit is designed in such a way that every 15 days, we will fill it up with 150 ton of biodung. And then it's a modern facility. It has many sensors. So we constantly monitor every 30 seconds, what is the temperature, what is the humidity, what is the liquid content and all that. There's much data comes in. And we push air through that whole big pile. And as a result, what we get, this temperature increases naturally in biodung because of bacterial growth. And that temperature becomes almost 60, 70, we have observed up to like 79 highest. So if something you boil at that temperature, like 70 to 75 for 15 days, it will completely decompose into its basic components. So cow dung has over 15, 16 minerals, nutrient, micronutrient. But cow dung as it is will not be available for plant to consume it. So it has to be decomposed. It's something like, if somebody says, hey, here is a lot of wheat, eat it. You cannot eat it even if you are hungry. You have to grind it. Once you grind it, you can't even eat the flour. You have to cook it. And so when you cook it, then one can eat it, right? Same way we are cooking that cow dung to plants. So once we cook it at this natural process, so we don't use any heat in it. This is all natural, which is good thing. So to produce this fertilizer in 15 days, we get two kind of fertilizer. One is called, it's a liquid form, what we collect. It's a humic acid. It's one of the most rich form of organic fertilizer. The other is solid part, which we take it and convert into granules. So these are the two processes which are available for farmer at a bigger scale. And it's very cheaper compared to the chemical fertilizers. So just to give some perspective, for a farmer to grow their food in Indian context, in my area, I'm saying Aligarh, they spend about 28 to 30 rupees per kg for a 50 kg bag to grow their food. And we can make it available almost at the half price of it. And it is much better. If they use more, it will not burn the plant. If they use it continuously, it will increase their soil quality. It will increase the bacteria. The soil will become live. Wherever the chemical farming is happening, the soil is dead, completely dead. Dead means it's like, there's no microorganism in it. There's no, its own ecosystem has completely been destroyed by chemicals and pesticides. So we are trying to rebuild that soil through this scale and technology. And this is a scalable model, means and it's a replicable model. Wherever there's a cow dung, I think this model can be implemented at whatever scale people want, and it will create a lot of employment. So at present, we have created about 20 employment in the village. We have created these skills for people to learn. Our farming is organic, our whole food and this all is organic. So if you look at this ecosystem as of now, what we have, there are 4 points. I talked 8-point ecosystem. Today we have 4. So cow is eating fodder, giving me cow dung urine, going to biodigester giving me methane, giving me slurry, bioslurry going to biofertilizer unit, that fertilizer giving me liquid fertilizer and solid fertilizer, and that's fertilizer going to the soil, and the soil giving me food, grains, vegetable, cow fodder again going to cow. So this is a closed loop system where there's no wastage, like output from one source is input to next one. Now, you may wonder, you may question, like, so where is the prosperity? Where is that, the economy you talked? And actually, I'll take liberty to quote our sages again. They have said, Gaumai Vasate Lakshmi. So when they say Gaumai Vasate Lakshmi, I always thought, like, what does it mean? I know the meaning is Gaumai means cow dung, Vasate means resides, and Lakshmi means Lakshmi. So Lakshmi resides in cow dung, but since childhood, I'm seeing a lot of cow dung, and I am not seeing any dollar or rupees in it. But when your mental growth happens, then this whole idea emerges and you start thinking. So something which I read in my childhood was still stuck. And now I'm thinking how this Lakshmi resides in cow dung. And today, this is the model how I can show that, yes, Lakshmi is there. And let me tell you, this biogenerator electricity we are producing since 2018 March. So it's been more than 3 years now. It's on-demand electricity. I may have used thousands of units. Cow has not sent me even single bill to date that where is the money, because you're using a lot of electricity. If you live anywhere, other places, you have to pay electricity bill, whatever it is. I'm using a lot of fertilizer every season. No statement from cows that, hey, you're using fertilizer, where's the money? Where's this payment? So if you were to use your fertilizer from other sources, you have to pay money. So basically, this is like real prosperity, which cows have given to us. That's where I define cow as COW, creator of wealth. So this is the wealth just from 2 points, just using the cow dung. Now you look at the wealth from the dairy industry. Look at the wealth from the fertilizer you produce and the grain you produce, because the grain or vegetables you produce from that is premium quality, pure quality compared to the chemicals. So it's a battle between good and bad. There's a whole world who's promoting chemicals, pesticide, and all that. I think there's an equally or more powerful society who promotes organic, natural, and all that. But these people are scattered. I think somehow if we can collect all these people and start asking them that you should always question when you get the food in your plate, how far this food has come from cow. Like at what distance cow is from this food. So the bread I'm eating, the chapati I'm eating, the dal I'm eating, the milk I'm drinking, where is the cow? Is it like 5 kilometers away or like 5,000 kilometers away, or not at all? So once we become aware, then I would say that things will start happening. Yeah. So this was, sorry, it took long to explain my village journey, but I'm back to the village setup, and now this whole system is running. My younger brother is taking care of his, and then back in 2019, end of 2019, the idea was when I quit my corporate life that I'll set up 108 such centers across the globe. That was the commitment.
Yeah, I wanted to know about Texas Gaushala. How did this idea
Yes.
came up, and how did you
Right.
start?
Yeah, so this is, sometimes you built your own boundaries, you built your own destination. So I built up for myself, let's say if I set up one project, what would I do next? I don't want to be in a management thing, day-to-day things and all that. So I would build up a team, I'll hand it over to them, and I'll help them run. Eventually, set up 108 centers. That's what I thought. But then there's a lot of money involved. There's a lot of effort involved. There's teamwork involved. So luckily, I found this team in my village, and they're working. 2019 November, we came back to US to talk to some people, explore possibilities of another center. Whether it would be in India or somewhere else, I didn't know at that time. So few investors showed interest in our project, and we wanted to meet them. And that's where I said, okay, whole family, I said, let's go there for 2 months, and we will basically meet these people and then come back. But I think certain things happen for certain reason. So we came here. Idea was to go to Orlando, Florida, but we didn't get a direct flight to Florida. So we ended up in Houston because Houston flight was quick, fast, cheaper. And we said, okay, we'll live in Houston for some time. We'll explore the community there. And then we will go to Florida. And it was a winter time. So it was like, we were mostly in a vacation mood at that time, let me tell you honestly. So there was no fixed agenda, nothing. We came here and we started talking. We visited temples, talked to the people. Hey, we are expert in cow facilities, this, that. What if we could set up something? The temple has land and temple should start building a Gaushala. People like the idea. And then this network started building, but then COVID came in and it locked everybody. And I'm talking like last January 2020. So the apartment which we rented, for like 2 months, now we are locked in it. We cannot go out because all borders are locked. So we had to extend it for 2 more months. We said like in 2 months, COVID will go. But, as the February came, we realized it's not going to go for 6 months. That's how we thought. But by March, we realized when deaths started happening, it was like panic last March, February, March, right? So then realize, this is something which has it's going to stay forever, for at least a very long time. So from there, the idea came, why don't we start looking a place where we can at least live with cows? This was just a personal pursuit, My kids were saying, why we are here? We were happily living there in the village, and we have come in this apartment. Because there they were living at a 25-acre farm. So then I started looking in Houston, can we find some land? And April land, we found this current land where Texas Gaushala is. It's a 4-acre property. It's right in Houston city limits. There's a town called Cypress, Texas. It's in Northwest Houston, about 20 minutes from Houston Airport. So that's how this started. In July, we got this land, and in August, we got our first 2 cows. And now we have 13 cows on this. So it's been about a year on this, actually, so we just crossed a year. August 10, we came to this property. We moved in here. And since then, we are running this Gaushala. we have not publicly announced like, like a proper media, but through social media, through personal network, people who visit, they refer. A lot of kids come, a lot of old people come, and of course youths do come. But the specific thing which I have seen, especially from older people, is few people, like 70s, 80s, they say, you have made me, feel this 40 year of life, I have forgot, because I did not touch cow for 40 years. Today I can touch it and feel it. I've seen tears in their eyes. And I feel like, of course, now this is the reason why I was pushed from my village to here to set it up. And so I think it's been easy for us because we know, I know how cows behave, live with people. It was a bit difficult. There were some practical challenges of dealing with cows in US. So all these are desi cows, what we call Indian cows.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you this question, that how do they manage with the climate change, and how did you get those desi cow to Texas, Houston, I mean?
So desi cows, actually, again, I will link it back to the British torture. So when Britishers were there, they basically put the country for sale. So when there is a for sale board, which means you put a finger and you put a price and you take it. So first cow, a lot of cows came to Texas back in 1850. And a lot of farmers went there and brought these cows. And most of them were Germans who settled in US. Because I talked to some of these people who still have these ranches. 3-4 of them are very significant, who have just the pure Indian breed. Now, what they have done is they have renamed as Brahman cows. They call it Brahman cows here. And there are only two categories, red Brahman and gray Brahman. So why they did it, I don't know. But I think it's typical US way of doing things, like, you relabel it and you remark it in a different way.
And then call it your own.
Yeah. So what they say, hey, we have developed it from Indian cows, but they are not Indian cows. So, okay, so how did you develop? Oh, we took, 50% of that cow, 10% of this cow, 5% of that cow, and that's how we built up. So, of course, that's how people say. I mean, I won't go in that battle. That's a different thing. And it's a lot of ranchers' bread and butter. But for me, a cow which has characteristics as defined in Vedas, as defined in our scriptures, I have those characteristics, I'll consider it as a desi cow. That's all. So we have all these pure, I call them pure because I've seen their characteristics. I've worked with cows for many years. So we have Sahiwal cows here and we have Tharparkar. I will also bring some Gir cows from Gujarat. Yeah.
So with that big hump on the top, that is
right.
the way we identify as Indian indigenous cows, right?
That is not the only characteristic. So
yeah, that is one of the characteristics.
So that's the one significant characteristic, that you see a hump on the cow's back. Yeah. The other characteristic will be from the hump to the tail, it will be in a curve. Like,
yes. It's a very good curve. Yeah, very good curve.
Whereas the other cows, Jersey, Holstein, they'll have a straight back.
Flat.
The backbone is flat, right? So that's another characteristic. Third is under near the navel point, you will see a skin hanging there. So you would see something like this, like a U-shaped skin hanging. That's one character of Desi cow. It may have of different shape, but you will not see it in other cows, in Jersey's, Holstein. The other characteristic is the skin hanging under their back, under their neck. So it's a very significant skin. It's not like if you see other cows, they'll be very thin and not like thick. Indian cows have very thick skin and very long. You can
They
see
hang
some of
pretty long below their neck, I guess. And you see
so
them almost all across India, because I've seen cows from
yeah,
the north to south. They have these typical characteristics. I
correct.
wonder how they have so much similarity. Like we might not be looking same, but they do look same.
Yes, yes. So these characteristics, and then their teats are bigger than other cows. So when they become pregnant and they start milking, they're much bigger than other cows. I mean, so looking at this, even if they are not, let's say, 100% pure Sahiwal, they may have some mixing. We can work on it. But to start with, we wanted to start. The challenge came when we brought these cows. So these cows, most of them, they have never been exposed to humans. So they just they raise them and they freely graze on the field. They hardly see people. But I think somehow they figured it out. Whenever they see people, one of us get disappeared, never see them again. So they don't want to come close to people. So when we brought first two cows, they never want to come close to us. They would move away and back to the property, live there. And for 2 weeks, we were very worried. How are we going to feed them? How are we going to touch them up? Forget about getting the milk. I mean, milk I'm still not getting after a year. But of course, the reason is there are multiple reasons, but one of the reason is they were scared and we were not raised this way. Second reason is difficult. It's impossible to get a mature cow here because they are in this country. They don't let these cows mature because they raise for beef purpose. That's their whole purpose. And so if you say, hey, I want a 3-year-old cow, 5-year-old cow, you will not get unless it's old. You can get. So in India, you can get the cow which just delivered and giving milk. That's possible. So we are raising these heifers, these female cows, as like kids. So most of our cows here, last year we got, they were roughly like 8-9 month or a year old, and that's where most of these ranchers sell these cows. So we started with that. And now some of them are pregnant, and hopefully in next couple of months, we should start getting some milk and some milk product here. But that's a challenge, So if somebody thinks, hey, I can get a cow from any rancher and I start working with no, you have to have a time frame built up and spend every day. Cow should get enough confidence in the person who taking care of. Otherwise, you would never build up the relationship. So now the relationship built up. You might have seen some videos and photos how people are comfortable with cows. They come, they worship, but it was, we can't imagine it happening last year. So it took good 6 months for us to have them this comfort level with humans. And now they see the people, they come forward, they feed from their hand, and they were pretty good. So it's been a learning experience for us to US, which I didn't expect when I thought of having cows in US.
That is very interesting because it's not so easy to put up a Gaushala in the US. First of all, people will not accept this as an investment option. And secondly, even if they do, they obviously want to hybrid the cows in such a way so that they produce more milk. The way, and that is the reason, veganism is growing in the Western world, in the modern world, because the way cows are handled, it is too cruel. People like me, though, I can't even see that sight. It's very disheartening for me. You have given me some images of the model, the model. I wanted to understand if somebody wants to do this project in India, say, let's start with India. What is the basic investment required? How much land is required? What kind of cows are required? And how one can start? So give me some idea, rough idea. Say, like not UP, not North, maybe say in Maharashtra, Gujarat, those sides. Like, because there are many NRIs living outside India, and if they want to invest, and if they want to do this project in India with the help of their relatives, not necessarily staying and coming back to India, how can we do this?
Yeah, weaved in many questions in one.
Yeah,
Okay.
actually, sorry, I asked all. You have to tell me the whole story of how to put up the whole thing.
Right. No, first I'll answer the beginning. You said it's not attractive for an investor in US or anywhere. I would challenge it. It is very attractive if you look at the whole ecosystem. If you just remove your thought only from the milk and dairy, because just milk and dairy you cannot compete. Number two, you don't have to have a hybrid model or a hybrid cow. These cows, they can compete with any kind of milk quantity. The problem is the kind of research R&D worked on those cows, it has not been done on these. But trust me, in Brazil, all the milk comes from Desi cows only. They have two breeds. They call it Gujarat, which is the Kankrej breed from Gujarat-Rajasthan border. And they have Gir. So they have only these two breeds. And I know 2-3 ranchers, dairy owners, very big dairies. And they have records like 65 liter a day, 40, 30, many cows, they have this kind of um, facility.
Is this the right image I'm sharing?
Yeah. So this is the whole story in like a one
Frame.
one graphics. This is the model I explained. If we were to look at, so this is actually for investors, those who are looking not only in India or US, anywhere in the world. See, Indians are everywhere, and nature-loving people are everywhere. It doesn't have to be Indian, doesn't have to be Hindu. It has to be just human being who has some sympathy to the environment, to the earth, to the ecosystem, and this thought that when I leave this world, am I living in a better way or a worse way? So what is my footprint on this earth? Is a negative or positive? With that thought, this investment can happen anywhere. These 8 points is ecosystem where all investment can happen. These are independent industries. Dairy, it itself is an industry. The fuel, electricity, it itself is an industry which can come from cow dung. The fertilizer itself is a separate industry. Organic growing, totally different industry, right? Nutraceutical healthcare, all based on natural fertilizers, a totally different industry. Eco products, or genetics or the tourism. So what I'm saying, it all depends what you want to do. Of course, investor cannot expect a Bitcoin kind of return in this investment or a software development return in this investment, but it will give natural, decent investment, which other food industry gives if you are going in dairy kind of or grains and all that, right? So one example is, Patanjali by Swami Ramdev ji. You look at him, he started with simple concepts and it's a successful business. So same way, these concepts can be developed. Number then comes to the point that what is the challenge? How do we set up in Maharashtra, Gujarat? So very good thing about Gujarat is that Gujarat is very much aware and awakened about preservation of cows, and the whole culture itself is very much involved connecting with the cows. And even that reflection I see in Houston. A lot of Gujarati families come here, and a lot of time they come up with the elder people, and when these elder people connect with cow, they always worship and mother and all that, right? So I don't understand Gujarati, but I'm sure they say Gau Mata aapki jai ho, ya aisa kuch. They have their own way of respecting cow. So Gujarat as a cultural, once see everything happens with a thought. Even the concept of God comes in thought first. Once that comes in the thought, then you don't distinguish between a stone and a murti. That every stone becomes a murti because that thought is there. Once this idea of God comes in, Krishna, what it is? So Yashoda is Maya. We have never seen either of them, but that concept is there. that there's a mother of Krishna, which is Yashoda. So the moment you get this concept of cow, all these things will follow. So Gujarat is good, culture is good. Maharashtra, I don't have much experience, but what I have seen in last 1 year running this Texas Gaushala here in Houston, people from all over India come here. Those who live in Houston, they're from different cultures, so Maharashtrian culture, people come here and they have their own ritual celebrations associated with cow. Like I didn't know that there's a cow worship day in Maharashtrian culture. They call Vasu Baras or something comes before Diwali. That I came to know last year only. So every culture, north to south, cow is the common thing in every culture, right? Specific financials about that region is very difficult for me to tell, but but it depends on what kind of model you want to build up. If it's a simple model for your own survival for a family, that's a totally different thing. In India, you don't have restrictions like, hey, you can't keep the cow, this, that, unless you live in like apartment communities. So if you live in typical rural communities, you can have a cow. From NRI's point of view, I mean, we can work together and see how they see it. And if they see a value, I think there's a potential in it. Not only in Maharashtra, not only in Gujarat, I think rest of the country, rest of the world, even I would love to explore a Gaushala in Kenya, if possible. I may not run it and live it there, but I will go there, set it up, run it for some time and build up the local team, right? So this is the whole idea of doing a cow-based ecosystem. In US, typically people suggest you should have 1 acre per cow. And that's thought probably coming from the fact that there are not people who can take care of cows. I mean, they don't have people to take care of elderly people, forget for the cows. So they have built up a system or more like a best practice. But if there's a person who's taking care, there's a feed there, everything, you could go a little bit more cows per acre. Now, one thing which I want to add here, this would be a long-term investment. It cannot be said that, hey, where is my ROI after 6 months, 3 months and all that. So if that, with that mindset and the mindset,
what is the long term in your mind?
Easily 3 to 4 years, you will start
for
seeing
the break even. You mean for the break even?
So break even I got in 2 years, okay. But then some CAs tell me that you have not taken in consideration the capital cost and all that. Of course, if you have a loan, then you have to bake that in. I did not have to take a loan. I put all my money. That's why I'm less worried because I don't have to pay somebody's interest. And I think there may be different models like it, see, for me, the bigger purpose is something else, actually.
I understand, but today we are exploring and the option and the viability of cow-based business model. That my purpose of inviting you was this, that our audience would understand that how a cow-based model business can also work for them. That is the reason I'm asking specific questions, because I'm sure you must have done your backward, costing and backward calculation that if I put this much, how much time it would take. So that is the reason I'm asking you. Okay, so say 2 years or 3 years, if your own investment is there and if you're not looking at a specific ROI, what about the texture of the land and what amount of grass is required? And of course, what about the equipments? What is the cost of equipments? Say if we consider the cost of equipments in your city, Aligarh. So how do we calculate?
So roughly for each cow, you would need about 45 to 50 square foot of space, covered space. That is to the areas where it rains or it's hot or it's winter, right? So you need a shelter. That's one investment which you need in the beginning, even before you think about the cow. You need to have a water storage facility, uninterrupted, like, that there's a tank which
Either
will.
well or a river. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but on the property, having property on the river is difficult. So nowadays, in modern context, I would say have your own well on this and have the water storage there. The places where you don't have electricity, you have to find a way to get water. Then fodder is another thing which you have to worry before you bring cow. If you're starting from a scratch, you could plant the seeds of some perennial grass. There are a lot of grass available in the market, which cow will graze automatically, So your cost of maintenance will reduce. Otherwise, you have to feed them 3 times or at least 2 times. Then if you go in a bigger operations, let's say more than 10 cows, so then you talk more about buying tractor, buying machineries to push that stuff, clean up and all that, because up to 4 or 5 cows one can do manually. It's more like a family setup. More than that, you're talking about a small operation or medium operation, then tractor requires, and these are things which even before any revenue coming in, this is all expense happening. You may not have electricity generation that, right? Because electricity generation is bigger investment and you need more cow dung. You can't simply say, okay, I have 20 cows and I'll generate electricity. It will not happen. So when I planned this project in Aligarh, I already had a plan that I will one day generate electricity, one day generate biofertilizer. And so whole ecosystem was supposed to be implemented. That's where I decided to invest in a 200 cows facility rather than just 20, right? So of course, today my infrastructure is not fully utilized, but I know slowly as I get better breed, I'll have this fully utilized. But then at that time, my whole ecosystem will be completely operational. Just to give you some perspective, what I have estimated, and I'm moving into that direction, is once I have 200 cows, just by dairy operations, we will generate about 4 crore rupees worth of revenue. And that 4 crore, my roughly operational expense would be 55%. So 45% of that 4 crore is enough money for me to save and reinvest into education of 300, 400 kids, which is my ultimate goal. Because initially, remember I told you, Krishi, Vanij and Shilp. So once you fix Krishi, you have to develop business opportunities, which is coming from this. And then Shilp. Shilp means skill. Skill means Gurukul. So what we want to develop is a self-sustaining Gurukul where I don't have to ask donations from anybody. So this ecosystem will feed these Gurukuls without much support from financial individuals. And that's where these kids will be exposed on all these skills. They will be not only exposed on our traditional knowledge, but on the modern science and physics, chemistry, computer science, everything. It would be practical experience. Kid today, they have all the devices, everything, and they still feel bored. My kids, when they were 3 years in the village, they never felt bored. I mean, in fact, they didn't have time to feel bored because morning they'll go to school, come back, work with the Gaushala dairy, this, that. So idea is when kid lives there in a Gurukul, they will be exposed to different skills. Because today's education is giving book knowledge only, which is like 3 to 4, maximum 4 hours of education, right? So exposing to book, we can do it without a problem. Any board, any education, right? But then rest of the time, this kid needs the atmosphere to be exposed, the environment to be exposed. So what we want to expose them, one batch of kid will go to kitchen. This kitchen, the cook is not a cook, it's a teacher. It will teach them. The farming guy is not a simple farmer, will teach them. Dairy person, the cow dung person, the fertilizer person, the computer scientist lab. I mean, all these things will be built in this ecosystem, which means this kid will never have time to become bored, because every 3 months we will evaluate a skill. We will say, this daughter can cook food for 20 people, or this boy cooks samosa very tasty, things like that. And if kid want to continue the same skill, they could continue, or they could move to another skill. Our whole objective is transitioning a kid from job seeker to entrepreneur. The entrepreneurship which came to me at age 40, can I bring that entrepreneurship idea to age 20? If we can do that, we don't have to run away from our villages to anywhere in the world. So that is
very true. Very true. It's very important for us to retain our knowledge and our craft and our people, educated people, I mean, in the country, because the way brain drain has happened in last 30 years, it was really disheartening. And secondly, the way Silicon Valley has got developed because of Indians, if we say, and unfortunately now that Silicon Valley is too left, left leaned, and I think they are out of sync. I really feel that they are promoting all the wrong ideologies of the world. So I think it's time that we build that system within our country. So my last question to about this the economy about cow is, though we worship cow as our mother, and we think cow should be part of family. What do you think about this veganism? Why the world is moving towards that? I mean, I mentioned it, that the cruelty, but what is the problem? Where is the problem? Because the quality of the milk which we see in this Jersey cow is different. When we call our cow milk is A2 cow, which is considered to be the better version. Please explain the difference so that people understand why Indian cow is more important.
So this whole story of A1 and A2 milk, started about 2 decades back in New Zealand. There's a scientist who got a government project to work on it, and project was related to kids. Certain kids were developing symptoms which they were not able to understand. And then he started analyzing the feed of these kids, which is, a lot of feed comes from big companies, mostly Nestle's and all these like other big companies. So he then went back to the source of that kid feed, right? What they found that most of the material in this is milk, and that milk comes from different breeds of cows. Then he started collecting samples of milk across the world. He analyzed them, and he started putting categories. Okay, this kind of milk is, I'll say A1. Other milk, I'll call A2. So at the end of it, he found only 2 kinds of milk. The differentiator in A1 versus A2 was there's a protein in the milk, and that protein has a chain reaction, amino acid chains, right? So that chain, this chain is about like 270 or some odd amino acids. At 69th position in A1, there's this concept called amino acid called histidine, that's there. In A2 milk is proline. So histidine is kind of thing which consumed, it goes in the body, and the protein breaks at that point. So this milk doesn't get consumed completely. Imagine like you have milk and you put lemon in it, it will break. It will not convert into yogurt, but it will convert into something else. You can make paneer from it, but not yogurt, or right? So same thing happens. Some studies say that when that break at that point, it becomes perfect feed for a cancer cell. So if it becomes perfect feed for cancer cell, then why don't people get cancer from it? Of course, a lot of people are getting, but your immunity kind of takes care of it. But at a certain stage, if immunity doesn't take care, then it will develop other symptoms. That's a research in this field which I studied. On A2, because it's proline doesn't break at that 69th position. So whole protein gets consumed by the milk, which means it basically builds up your immunity. So if it's building immunity and there's no cancer feed, then you'll feel healthy. This is what scientists say. I'm not a geneticist or microbiologist, but we will actually work as part of this initiative to get some modern science perspective to it and prove it to the world that why it's important. So that's the A1, A2 differentiation. The whole veganism idea is basically moving away from the problem rather than solving it. So it's a misinformation in my mind. They, exposure to information is there, but how do we perceive it is up to us. How much mature we are. Like you brought this idea of Silicon Valley talking in a different world. Of course, they are different from our point of view. When we talk about Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina, in their mind, they don't think that way, right? For them, that things, they think, oh, like we are the king. So same way with this whole veganism idea that we are moving away from the problem and we're finding an easy way to quit it rather than solving it. And this is inbuilt in all of us. And it was inbuilt in me. Like I came to US because there was a struggle, suppose. A lot of us quit it. And then we start complaining, which I was doing. Oh, the road in my village is not good. This thing should have been fixed. That should have been fixed. When I think about it, the best people from my village who were the best, they all quit and they went somewhere, settled somewhere else. The second layer of people who were not that best, but they were like second grade, they kind of settled in clerical jobs. The lowest quality of people, those who couldn't do anything for themselves, they became pradhan, they became neta, they became all these people. And now they are responsible to do it. See, who's going to solve the problem? The local person will solve. But who's staying at local level? The local level person is that who did not do anything for themselves. Why do you expect them to do for yourself? So if you go with a big car, beautiful car, and expect that village pradhan will fix the road for you, that's a dream you're living in, right? And of course, I was like it until 2015. But then I started thinking, the one who knows it need to fix it. So there is a cost of knowing it. There's a cost of intelligence. You cannot be excused then by saying, hey, I didn't know. If you know it, you have to do it, right? So that's where I'm saying veganism in the same way. A lot of people are quitting drinking milk or dairy products because they see ugly part of it, and it is ugly. I don't want to talk it today, but rather than moving away from the problem, why don't we fix it? And fixing it is there as a better way to get that milk. And that's where I will bring this idea. You ask in your food plate where this milk is coming, where this, every chai you drink, where is my milk coming from? Can I make it sustainable? Can I make it coming from a ahimsa cow? There's a ahimsa concept going on nowadays. I'm saying the whole Hinduism is all about ahimsa. We worship everything, right? But then don't take it as like we are the weak people. We are the culture who have fought many big battles, and we have completely destroyed the evil part, be it Ramayana, be it Mahabharata. So we know how to fix it. It's in our genetics, and we are the generation who can fix it. We are the generation most of the Silicon Valley is enjoying the whole technology, right? So all I'm saying that I think we need to work with these people, help them understand, take this message that the good milk is also possible. The milk without cruelty is also possible. Each country can initiate, some group in each country can start this initiative and bring these people back. I mean, if you move away from it, then obviously somebody is going to take advantage of you. Some company will say, okay, I have brought soya milk, I have brought, you will see milk from vegetables, you will see a lot many things, you know. So until you solve the problem remains problem, and somebody else will make business out of it. So before someone else makes a business out of it, we got to think and solve it. So I'm opening myself to the whole world, to the whole investor community. Let's talk, let's fix this. The world need more of this Hindu culture values today. That is not just on books or reading or mind. It should start with food. It should start with our living atmosphere. It should start, the mental thought comes very later. The first we perceive this world with 5 senses. Roop, ras, shabda, sparsh, gandh. We want to see the thing. Roop means looking from eyes. We want to see the thing. Ras, we want to taste it by tongue. Sparsh, we want to touch and feel. Gandh, we want to smell it. Shabd, we want to hear it, right? So these are the 5 concepts which Patanjali has defined, or all of us understand. It's a basic thing. Once we understand this, then they talk about mana, buddhi, chitta, ahankar. Then it goes more into intellection and ego and all that. So I would say Hinduism has recipe and manual and ecosystem for all of it. Like, you pick up one thing and we can explain each concept in whatever dimension you want and make a business out of it. So, I mean, I'm going in philosophy. Sorry, I think the topic was
No, Abhinavji, actually what you said is very well said, because the idea is that people don't understand the importance of the food which we have on our plate. They consider that as a very lame and very basic thing, because somehow it is not intellectually, it is not giving them that say kick, or maybe that that push which they get out of maybe stock market or the IT or the other industries. So they don't understand that what we eat is the first thing. What we eat is what we are, and everything starts with our food. And I guess that is what we had understood in our previous earlier times, that we were able to give so much importance to what we eat and how we feed the others, as in the environment also, like feeding the cows and feeding the birds and feeding every animals or animal insect in the whole ecosystem. So I think, I hope people get some enlightened, and I hope that they approach you to put up their gaushalas and put up their setup, invest in that. With this session, I want to urge even our NRI communities that invest. If you can't yourself, go and do something, invest in such kind of projects in your town, village, wherever you come from in India, because my endeavor is to build up our country first. Though we don't live in the country, it doesn't matter, but we have to do something for the place where we come from. So I feel that I hope that our audience will get some ideas from our conversation. And sorry, Abhinavji, I misspelled your name initially because I got derailed. The whole thing started in the background, and I think my browser was on and whatever. So I just, I'm sorry for that. But I really enjoyed this session. And for me, it was quite enlightening, because I also want to do something about it. And as I told you, that I want to understand if I can do this near Mumbai, because I'm originally from there, and I want to find a place. And if I can do this, maybe initially start with organic vegetables and then go to the next level, because I think starting with organic vegetables is little easier. You can do with 4 to 5 cows as well, isn't it?
Well, for that, I would say you don't even have to have cows in the beginning. What we are doing in our plant, we can send the biofertilizer itself. So you start right away without having the burden of cow. Eventually, when you move into dairy and all that aspect, cow could come. So that way, someone investing in organic vegetables could be right away, because until now there was no systematic way of getting the organic fertilizer available. And that was my challenge for last 5 years or so. This year we solved that, and now we can make a product available in the same shape and form, but much better product than the toxic chemicals. And that, and if people want at a scale, this can be scaled up. It's not that, hey, I cannot scale up. So this is, but really I enjoyed it. And our ancestors have said that if there is one thing which is the most pavitra, that's cow. And I would just read a slok which worship to cow, and they said she's the most pavitra of all things. Cow dung is the waste, right? That's also worshipped. The shloka goes, Namo gobhyah srimatibhyah saurabhebhyah evacha Namo brahma sutabhyascha pavitrabhyo namo namaha. With that, I look forward for more opportunity to talk to more people and see where we go from here.
Sure. Thank you so much. Actually, it is our tradition to start with the prayer by the speaker, but I think I lost a race today. But thank you so much for ending this session with the prayer. Thank you so much. Namaste.
Namaste. Namaste.